So coming up to us is Steve Panovski. Is right? Panovski. Panovski. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. So
just call me Steve the Fifth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's about right. But Steve is president and CEO of UBX Cloud, a Detroit, USA-based global cloud service providers. Stephen has been involved with data centers and IT and MSP consulting since 1996. Stephen is a certified Microsoft systems engineer and with heavy specialization on massively scalable and distributed storage systems as well as a subject matter. You're going to explain that to me, right?
Sure, yeah.
Good, good. Okay, expert in cybersecurity and business continuity. In addition to his involvement with UBX Cloud, Stephen is a founding member of the Cyber 8. You can explain that too.
Sure.
Cyber 8 group and leads in several advisory boards focusing on defending and protecting critical infrastructure. He graduated from Oakland University with a BS in computer engineering. Steve has built an IT dream team of successful systems, network, and security engineers with an emphasis on cloud and cyber, showcasing his deep passion for server technology, cloud infrastructure, company MSPs, and enterprise with their path to the cloud.
Cool.
Boy, with all that information, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should be. I'm going to turn all that and I'm going to make it fun. I promise.
That's good. Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve.
All right, cool. Do you want to turn the timer on?
I got it.
I don't want to do a Jacob, right? And it'd be all right. Clean and cyber. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And let's talk about what is cloud first, kind of before I get into the crux of this. Cloud, in my definition, is someone else's computer. So when people say, oh, let's move our email to the cloud, let's move our phone system to the cloud, what they're effectively saying is, let's get this system from where it is here on this computer and put it in someone else's computer. Hopefully that someone else has the expertise to manage it and the team behind it to secure it and protect it and nurture it much better than it would be where it's currently at. So a little bit about my company, UBX Cloud. So UBX has been a cloud services provider, and we've been incorporated for 14 years. And we serve enterprise customers, managed service providers, pretty much anyone who wants to take that computer and put it somewhere else. We're the somewhere else. You may hear the terms like Amazon Cloud or Microsoft Cloud. Just replace that with giving Microsoft your servers or giving Amazon your servers for them to manage. I started this business and I always wanted to be kind of like the Kim Possible of IT. I'm not sure if you guys get the Disney reference, but I wanted to be the Wade from Kim Possible, who was like opening the elevators and opening the doors for the Tom Cruises and for the heroes and heroines in those TV shows. So our team is like a back-end infrastructure and security team that support managed service providers like the ones that are here today, and they in turn support you. All right. Let's talk a little bit about backups, because that's my topic and that's my specialty here. Let's talk about those who have been breached and those who will be. So the threat landscape has changed significantly. I'm sure that that is something that everyone has picked up today at this conference. And I'd like to say that maybe 10 years ago, the way that information security was looked at and the way the threat landscape looked at was more of crimes of opportunity. So you had people who were walking past the jewelry store, they saw the brick on the floor, they saw an opportunity to break the window, no one was around, and they just took the jewels, right? Complete opportunity play there. The way that the cyber landscape is today is that anything on the internet is accessible and is a target. And therefore, instead of it being a brick on the floor, they are becoming sophisticated enough to be able to break into these systems without even physically being in there. They can access this stuff remotely, and it's becoming a business enterprise. So there are fully actuated criminal businesses that have, HR and technical teams and different kinds of technical teams and time off, and and they're making a significant amount of money in either they're state sponsored or they're private, but they all have a goal. They want to break the glass, and they want to take that jewelry. They want to take that, and they want to steal as much as they can, do as much damage as they can, and extort as much money as possible with the least amount of effort. And the target of attacks is becoming very sophisticated. There are some threat groups that just spray emails all day, hoping that someone will click on them. And the more they send, the more clicks they get, and the more ransoms they can push out there. So understanding that and understanding your backups is a good first defense from preventing the crooks and the hackers and the business enterprises that are out there to help prevent them from stealing your data and extorting you for money. Understanding your backups. There's three elements. There's the software element, which there's a lot of fantastic software products out there that kind of make the process of managing backups and taking backups easy and pretty straightforward to manage. At UBX, we're really big into Veeam technology, and we've been advocating that software for quite some time because it's effective and it works very well. And really, with the right technology partner, they can make the recommendations and they can help assist you in managing those recommendations. And there's a lot of those in the room today. But it's really important to just kind of have that, look, we need this software. This is, this isn't offensive. This is not antivirus. This is not a firewall. This is not a SOC team that's looking at logs. This is something very foundational. Our businesses are run on data and people, right? And data is the oil. It's the new oil. It's digital currency. And without that data, there is no business. So making sure that you're covered from a backup aspect is something that's very easily and cost-effectively done from the beginning versus when you're at the end of that incident and you're already knee-deep in a breach or a ransomware event where you have to decide whether or not I'm going to file bankruptcy, or I'm going to pay the ransom, or I'm just going to walk away, right? Because that's a decision that didn't have to be made if these preemptive steps were taken before the event. Then there's the human element of backups. So many times I've seen in my career where I will ask a business decision maker, how are your backups? Who's checking them? Who's monitoring the actual completion of these jobs? And they're going to say, okay, well, it's this guy. He's in accounting, but he also does some IT work, and he's responsible for rotating the tapes. I did this for about 50 businesses back in my early days in my career, where I was checking them not doing their jobs, right? No tapes were rotated. The same tape that was in there 8 months ago was the same tape that was there when I was visiting it. I mean, it's just elevated from there. Now the systems are actually even more sophisticated, and it's driving the car without the driver actually being there. Someone actually has to direct this. And this kind of goes back into the earlier discussions about having the right team of experts to help you with this. So internal IT already has a lot going on. They're already handling the break fix support for the end users, and they need to rely on external sources. They need to make sure that they partner up with the right vendors, because the IT discipline is much like the medical field, right? Like, you've got pediatricians and you have general practitioners, and then you have foot doctors, eye doctors, and surgeons, and people who specialize in certain kinds of cancers, but they all work under that medical umbrella. So I feel that decision makers don't fully understand that IT functions that way. So you can't expect the people that you have working for you internally, who are handling the fires inside the walls of your building, to actually understand the threats that exist outside of your building. So Data Tech Cafe, some of the other groups that are in here, they're a prime example of the people that you want to connect with, and to make sure that you've got the right strategy in place and that you're working with the right people. And the last item of this is the 3-2-1 rule, which is a rule that me as a systems engineer who's been responsible for not only our own backups, but the backups of businesses globally, you always want to have 3 copies of your backups. The first copy is your production copy, which is what you're normally running. And then you want to have 2 copies, one on different media, and one of those copies off-site. I'm the off-site, right? I'm the guy I'm the last resort at UBX Cloud where if your internal environment is compromised, there's a good chance they've gotten to your backups. If your internal backups are compromised, then you go and you check your off-site backups. I will have a copy of your off-site backups. And my team helps restore you back to business. This is a good one. The relationship between backups and ransomware. Like I mentioned previously, this is a criminal enterprise. These are money-making mechanisms for all kinds of nefarious people. The current ransomware bad guys know that backups are the main company's protection for data loss and encryption. So, just thinking about the phishing email, right? They're like marketing. John, my buddy over there, he can probably attest to this. If you send 5,000 emails out, right, with phishing emails, with trying to lure someone to click something, 150 of those people click on it, and 50 of them get their networks compromised, and 20 of them pay the ransom, and 30 of them had backups and don't pay. So statistically speaking, that's one threat actor doing this every day. Now, there's people all over the planet that do this for a full-time job, or they have their buddy Yuri works for the Kremlin, and Yuri's telling them, okay, send emails, and start clicking on stuff. So that effect just exponentially grows. So the threat is real, and it's making people money so that they keep doing it. There's also extortion models where the software developers will develop a ransomware as a service package where they are selling the framework of the software, and the customer comes to them and says, I want to target manufacturing companies, $50 million and higher. I want to target the software they use, the accounting systems that they typically deal with, and I want to get in. So the software, the creators will do an arrangement where they can purchase the ransomware from the website or from the dark web. They can customize it for this client. Client pays, and then they get a percentage of the ransom. So the software developer is incentivized financially to build better software for the criminal who's using it to hack these businesses. And it doesn't matter if it's a small business or a large business, zero care. It's all about numbers. Hit as many people as possible. We might get 50,000 in Bitcoin from this company. We might get 50 million from this company. But when you're a business decision maker and you have to say, okay, I don't have backups, my entire network is encrypted, I'm losing money, my business might not survive this, what do I do, right? The decision is either pay, if you can't restore from backups, you pay, or you fold, right? And there's been incidences where UBX has provided remediation and support for cyber incidences, and sometimes those companies don't survive the attack, right? They can't afford to pay it, or they can't get a loan for it, they can't get the data back, so they're done. They close their doors. This happened to a company in California. They were hosting emails since 1998. They had a large customer base. It was a second-generation family-owned business, and they were compromised. All their customers' emails were encrypted. Their systems were encrypted, and they put a notice on their website, and they said after 20-some years of in business, we had to close our doors, and we're terribly sorry. That was their Dear John on the internet. It was pretty crazy. So the bad guys are out there and they're organized, right? If you can imagine, there's groups of technical teams in some of these organizations that will go in and they'll paint targets on the backups, the on-premise backups. Just like they would in a war, they'd put the laser pointer on the artillery or whatever, and they blow it up from the sky. They're pointing the laser on the client's backups, and they're saying, when we get into this network, right, these are the places that you have to hit first. So they're going to go right after the backups because that's the first thing they can destroy, and they can destroy easily. And then they laterally investigate the network and see where they can hit, and then they coordinate that attack. So then you have your internal IT staff scrambling to recover from an event. they check the backups. Backups were the first thing to go. And I've seen very clever data destruction methods and encryption done to backups so that they're absolutely not recoverable, to the point where they actually destroyed the hardware remotely, which was that was something that was recently kind of new. And all right, I didn't advance. So what is a recovery plan, right? How do I get this in place to prevent all the bad stuff that I just mentioned? Recovering from a disaster is stressful. You don't want to wait. So just take a little bit of planning, just a little bit. You have a professional firms that work in this space. They can do a security audit. They can see where you're at from a security hygiene standpoint, and they can see where you need to be, what's reasonable to get to where you need to be. Someone put the 80-20 on the slide, and that was excellent. That was a really good point, because even if you can't afford it, if you can't afford all of it, at least get some of these low-hanging fruits out of the way so that you're at least better protected than you were before the conversation happened. And understanding your recovery time objective. Understanding from these are one of the basic questions that we ask companies. What's their loss for downtime, right? An RTO is what is acceptable downtime for your business. If you're a small business and you're a bakery and you're selling coffee and baked goods, you can probably afford to be down an entire 24 hours without that much impact to your bottom line. Your customers aren't going to riot. You're not going to have the Channel 7 news all over you. Okay, we didn't make cannolis today, we're going to make cannolis tomorrow. So your RTO, your recovery time objective could be 48 hours and they'll be fine, or 24 hours. Whereas some companies, manufacturing company that I'm going to reference, they actually calculated their downtime as $20,000 per hour. So that's just production. That's the manpower to build whatever it is that they're building. And if their systems are down, their production is down. And if their production is down, it's costing them $20,000 an hour. So they would be willing to spend more on a more robust backup and disaster recovery solution, because the cost of that downtime is significantly more than the cost of the solution. And plus, it just makes sense. Now, I've been on the other side of this conversation where I've been telling people, if your downtime is $20,000 an hour, why don't you pay the $6,000 a year for the offsite backup? And I get looks at me like, well, I don't know, why should I pay for it? Because your downtime is $20,000 an hour, right? And Channel 7 News will be there when you go down, okay? It'll be a PR nightmare, and you'll lose contracts from the rest of the automotive community because they don't know why you're not producing these widgets or whatever you're making, and people are going to notice that your factories are down. There's also certain industries that have to cater towards compliances, right? HIPAA, FINRA. You have a duty in the industry that you're in and an obligation to report an incident or a breach or anything that may impact your uptime or how you're rendering your medical services. And it's important to get a handle on what that is, and having the right managed service provider, asking the right questions, and getting those things in line is your first step to. It's a first step, and it's an easy step to make to kind of protect you from having to go further down that rabbit hole in the event of an incident. Who's responsible for what? Essentially that. As a part of our services, if you're purchasing backup or disaster recovery services from UBX, we go through and we map out who are the key contacts for your organization. What's an acceptable amount of downtime? Otherwise, we're going to have to bring up these servers first and these servers second. Who do we call? What time zone are they in? What networks need to be up? Who do we need to communicate with? There's an entire run book that needs to be going through. And in our case, we're typically the ones that are leading it because we do this all the time. So we'll connect with your local IT. We'll connect with the decision makers. And then depending on how the incident is, then we'll connect with your insurance carriers and your breach console and anyone else who's a part of the discussion. And that kind of segues into the recovery team. Depending on the type of disaster, you don't really know who to ask for, so that's where that playbook comes into. And know the role of each of the players. right? If your outside IT MSP partner is the one that's providing you all the expertise and service for this, make sure that you understand how to contact them, outside of normal business hours. What's the escalation plan? Who do we reach out to? And it doesn't take, that much effort. 1 or 2 meetings a year, right? 1 or 2 meetings a year, we can protect ourselves from not having to pay the ransom, not having to deal with the embarrassment, not have to, consider liquidating our business because we have no business now. These threats are real and they're just getting worse. Recovery team members. It's important to kind of understand the life cycle of a cyber incident. In the beginning phases, there is something there's some incident that happens, whether it's a breach or an infiltration or someone broke into your systems, right? Something misconfigured. This is the most common that we see. Some, IT professional, staff member, vendor. I always blame the software vendors, and you should always all blame the software vendors because they're all bad. Okay, they will leave something unpatched or exposed to the public internet, and like I said, everyone just blasting your IP addresses and your internet footprint, and they're trying to find a way in, and usually something that's misconfigured is what causes that. So they get a leg into the network. So the recovery team members are like I was mentioning previously, like a medical discipline, right? Each member has their own area of specialty, and in the life cycle of a cybersecurity event, you have the incident, then you have the incident response team. Now that's usually brought in by the insurance carriers. We got Highland over here, and they're very keen on this, I'm sure, right? So they have their breach hotline. You call them up and you say, hey, all my files are not accessible. My network is down. Something's happening. If you don't have the expertise on staff, if you don't have the cyber hawks, watching your environment to let you know that you've been hacked, you've got no visibility until it's too late. So then you call the insurance carrier and they say, okay, we're going to send an incident response team over there. And I want you to imagine an IR team as like the CSI of the cybersecurity world, right? They're like at the crime scene with like the black lights, and they're looking for like epithelials and everything. And they're the ones that are going to say, this is how they got in, like right here. Now that might take 6 months. It might take a month. Who knows? But during that time, the next group of people that work besides the insurance company are going to be the vendors. Your managed service provider partners, your internal IT, they know the systems. They know the users, they know the business processes, but they might not have the knowledge about recovery, and they may not have the knowledge of rebuilding these systems that already existed before they started. And that's where my team comes in. When we sell you backup services or disaster recovery services, we work with the MSPs to provide what's called remediation. And remediation is simply bringing my business back from the dead as quickly as possible. Whether that's backups, whether that's restoring to an alternate site using disaster recovery, or whether that means rebuilding everything and working with what we have and re-entering data into systems. And sometimes that's an actual thing. There was one note that I actually put in here that I wanted to read. Yes, I called this the perfect diamond heist because it's exactly what it is. During these cyber incidences, it's really important for you to have the right team to be able to help bring your environment back online as quickly as possible. Now, you as a customer of these insurance carriers have the right to choose who you want on those teams. You don't have to use Highland's recommendation. You can say, look, we've been working with Data Tech Cafe for 25 years, right? Or this MSP or this group, and they know our systems. So don't bring in someone that is going to guess on where things are. Bring in someone who knows, and we have them. So every year you can amend your policy and say, I want these people to handle my IT in the event of a breach, which is my team that I selected, or I want this incident response team at UBX to handle any kind of recovery efforts. So making these kinds of decisions helps in the long run in protecting what you have. Oh, the cane's coming. Well, it still says 25 minutes, so I got 25 minutes left.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Am I the last Steve today, or is there no more Steves?
I'm always here.
No, you were this morning. If I'm the last Steve, then I hope I hope that you guys appreciated my discussion about backups, and I'm very passionate about this. So I mean, like the other Steve said, your questions are free. Ask as many as you want. I think that's important. Even those people who are on the webinars or online, you know, ask any relevant questions. Don't be afraid, because you don't know what you don't know, and if you don't ask, you never will. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.